Your private information should be just that, private, so protect it at expressvpn.com/inside.
Hello and welcome to Inside Gaming. Yes, of course, usually we would have an Inside Gaming daily episode right now, but we are on break. Don't worry, we got something really cool. Joining me today, special guest from Supergiant Games, creative director, Greg Kasavin. How are you, Greg? What's going on?
Hey, I'm doing well. Thanks a lot for having me.
Yeah, no problem. I'm super excited to talk to you. We're recording this at an interesting time. Hades is out right now. We just got Game Award nominees. We don't know what's about to happen, but when you're watching this, and I think December 28th, you're already going to know everything. So I guess I just kind of want to catch up with you a little bit. I think, people probably have obviously been watching the No Clip documentary, but how have things kind of been in getting up to launch and kind of now having the kind of coming down from it?
Yeah, it's weird, I think, in a word. It's amazing and also a lot of cognitive dissonance some of the time as well. Obviously, it's been a tough year. People can probably relate to it on sometimes you catch yourself like, I shouldn't be feeling happy. It's a terrible time. But like, we're amazed at the response that our game has been getting. I think we knew what we had, but you just never know. Like, the game has been in early access for a while, right? Like, people have known, but the response has been like pretty explosive. So we've been supporting the launch. We've been just kind of like rolling with it as much as possible, and still working on some aspects of it. We have our big cross saves update. That's a pretty big technical challenge. So we're still working on Hades, even though it's been out for a little while, but we couldn't be happier with how the launch has gone.
That's awesome for me to hear as a big fan that you all are still working on it, but I hope that also you get to take a break and kind of calm down a little bit. And obviously, got thrown a total curveball in the last few months of development there with COVID and everything.
Yeah.
Has that been wearing on you all at all, or are you kind of just good to go, or what's morale like?
Yeah, it's, I'm sure it's going to vary from person to person. I try to find the silver lining, I guess. That's the best that maybe any of us could do right now. But I'm grateful to be able to spend more time with my family. I don't have much of a social life anyway, so that wasn't significantly affected by all this. But that's just me.
Despite the hardships of that transition at Supergiant, you all were able to kind of still deliver on release date and kind of hit your milestones and stuff. Do you attribute that to just kind of being a smaller studio, or what do you attribute that to?
Yeah, I do think our relatively small size, we're just under 20 people, did help, absolutely. Like, I think very big studios, it's a much bigger challenge. Like, for us, remote work has been part of how we've done things all along. It wasn't that big of a deal apart from the actual circumstances of it being so wild and hard to deal with. So we had this shot. We were already pretty far along in development. We knew what we wanted to do with the rest of the game. So we just kind of gave it everything we've got. But still, that doesn't guarantee the outcome by any means.
I think what's really interesting is the response to Hades. I think the art and the world, the characters of Hades are something that comes up a lot on games Twitter. And I know you said you can never really tell what the response to a game that you're making is going to be, but did you expect this kind of response? I'd say, like, maybe in a word, describe some of them as thirsty, maybe a little bit.
No, I mean, people talk about the characters like being sexy or whatever. Gen Z, our art director, she's an incredible artist, and I think she has a specialization in beautiful characters. All of our game, so we're a little surprised in that, like, our games, I think, have always had beautiful characters in them in a way, but we've never made a game about Greek gods before. And, like, part of the appeal of the theme for someone like Jen is, like, she gets to make Greek gods. They have a certain reputation to uphold. They're not just regular people. So that was kind of like in a nutshell, the reason everybody is pretty looking in Hades is because of that. They're like, a character like Achilles. He's like the greatest warrior of all time. Like, this is going to be a good-looking guy. He kind of has to be. He's like the ultimate warrior type of guy, and you have these gods like, Aphrodite, and there are different portrayals of all of them. But yeah, it's definitely from the mind of Gen Z, and we've been thrilled at how much the characters have taken off. I mean, they got a good response during our early access, but yeah, it just kind of went to the next level once we launched, and we started seeing just all this amazing fan art and just a lot of support for all the different characters. We've never had a game with a fully voiced cast of characters like this, so even just the positive response to the voice acting really means a lot to us, because that was like a big kind of scary leap for us to take on this game.
Speaking to kind of like the characters in the world of Hades, I mean, there's plenty of interpretations of Greek gods, throughout history, obviously. So I'm curious, like what y'all set out to kind of achieve with your interpretation. Like, what makes these Greek gods like specifically Supergiant themed or styled? You know, what goes into making a character for Hades?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a question we asked ourselves like almost word for word when we set out to make this game, because yeah, there's so many adaptations of Greek myth. Like, what's our business even making something like this? Like, why should it exist, right? Like, what's the point of adding to Greek myth, like, if you don't have some point of view on it? And our starting point was this idea that the Greek gods are the ultimate dysfunctional family. And it's not necessarily like their supernatural godlike abilities that make them compelling. Like, it's not that Zeus can throw lightning bolts. It's that they have these like really human flaws. And in some cases, like, really kind of outrageous personality traits. Like, when you go back to the source material, the versions of these characters that have not been sort of filtered through media over the ages, they are wild. So we wanted to start from that as the source and looking at them through the lens of a big dysfunctional family and how would they interact. But also, like, you know, the game has a lighthearted quality, right? It's not nearly as dark as a lot of Greek myth is, or it doesn't turn out to be. It may look that way at first. And I think it was the image of Cerberus, you know, the notorious Hound of Hell, as the family dog that like crystallized it for us. Cerberus is just Hades' pet.
Yeah.
So thinking about it that way, suddenly we imagine this like kind of more domestic drama and bringing these characters down to earth. So that's kind of where our point of view came from.
That source material, where you're pulling from, for you as somebody who's now developing these characters off of a set world instead of like Pyre, where you kind of just built everything, right? What's that like?
Yeah, part of the appeal of basing this game off of Greek myth is that we've never done an adaptation before. Each of our previous games, we just made stuff up, right? They're our own like original settings where we got to kind of control every aspect of what went into them. So paradoxically, it was like a scarier creative challenge to like base our game off of something that existed than to make everything up. I think for a lot of developers, the idea of making something up from scratch would be more intimidating. And for me, I drew upon a lot of different reference material. As a matter of fact, this camera is resting upon some of that reference material right this very second.
As it should be.
Such as Crowell's Handbook of Classical Mythology. But I went back and reread, the Iliad and the Odyssey, and there's an author called Hesiod who wrote something called Theogony. It's actually quite short, but it's basically like the Greek myth, kind of de facto creation myth. So, in the beginning, there was chaos, right. And from chaos, sprang this, that, and the other. And drawing from those original sources was mainly where I got my reference material from. And in fact, the entire concept of the game, having the protagonist Zagreus, who is a character I was not familiar with prior to this game, despite studying Greek myth since I was a little kid. It's from like a tiny scrap of a play from a writer called Aeschylus, who suggested that Hades had a son. We're like, what? Hades had a son? Like, I've never heard of that. Who is this guy? And then there's all this weird information about this guy Zagreus, and it's pretty inconclusive. And it's like, wait a minute, this is perfect. Like, no one knows this guy's story. We benefit from that because we could kind of fill in the blanks in the mythology, as it were. We also found that Hades himself, despite being one of those household name gods, there are very few stories about him specifically. So it kind of gave us license to expand upon what was known about this guy, and that was exciting to us.
Yeah, that's really cool. I feel super outclassed and kind of dumb because I feel the same way about like X-Men characters. I'm like, what? Yeah. Magneto had kids, but it's similar in that way, I guess. Yeah. I
half jokingly say like Homer with the Iliad and the Odyssey, he basically created the equivalent of the Marvel cinematic yes. universe of his time.
Absolutely.
Because the Odyssey is like a spin-off sequel. It's like making a Doctor Strange movie after the Avengers or whatever. He's like, oh, there's this guy Odysseus. He was kind of this compelling character in the Iliad. What if there was this whole, awesome side story about him? So I love those connections. I actually see a lot of those same connections. Yeah. And comics are modern mythology as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I love to hear it. So Odysseus coming to Hades in 2021, is that what we're saying?
Yeah, we don't know what's next. Yeah, we honest to goodness have no idea what's next for us. We never plan the next game while we're still working on the game we're working on. Like Hades, we started planning as soon as we were done with Pyre, for example. We could do that because we're small, and a big part of the reason we do that is because we don't know how we're gonna feel at the end of a project, so we don't want to kind of commit to something that then at the end of a project we're like, why are we doing this? And we may have new ideas, get inspired by new things. So we just kind of defer on that for as long as we can. But it does mean that We don't know what our immediate plans are. Like I said, we gave the 1.0 version of Hades everything we've got, and that means anything left on the cutting room floor basically is stuff that should stay there.
Yeah.
We're not sitting on a bunch of stuff that we're, waiting to release DLC every 30 days or something like that. We got to figure all that stuff out.
Hey everybody, I hope you're enjoying this interview. There's a lot more fun questions to come, including a bold prediction by yours truly that's probably not going to go my way. And we're going to get to all that in a second. But first, let's take a moment to say thank you to our sponsor, Full Sail University. We all love video games, but have you ever considered making them? If so, then I want to tell you about Full Sail University, which offers a variety of gaming degree programs on campus and online that can teach you the tools, technology, and workflow used by today's gaming studios. You can learn level design, programming, character modeling, production, and more. Graduates from Full Sail have worked on awesome games like Grand Theft Auto 5, the Call of Duty series, Assassin's Creed 4, Black Flag, and many more. Full Sail has degrees available in game development, design, and art, as well as many other degrees in entertainment and media. To learn more about Full Sail's programs, as well as potential scholarship opportunities, visit fullsail.edu/insidegamingdaily. That's fullsail.edu/insidegamingdaily. All right, let's get back to the interview. Yeah, that does bring me to my next question about early access and you having the No Clip documentary there. So it is like this kind of visible process for you, and a new thing for Supergiant. Would you do it all over again the same way? And obviously this is the first time, so maybe there's some changes that you want to make?
Yeah, it was incredibly important to how this game turned out. The whole game was designed around being an early access game, first of all, but even still, I don't think there's any way to explain the extent to which this game is like kind of exceeding our past successes other than to attribute a lot of it to the early access process, because we were able to get feedback on every aspect of the game, including the story, surprisingly. Like, I think people would typically believe that early access doesn't lend itself to story-driven games. Like, if you have a story, it doesn't work because people are just going to play through the story and they're not going to want to, come back to your early access game over and over. But we made it work with our story structure, and the story benefited just like everything else. So it was definitely like a really intense process, but it was really exciting as well. And we learned an awful lot. So that's not saying we'll definitely do it again. I don't know, but like we would be fools to not at least think about it.
Do you have a good example of a change that you made in the game that was player driven that you wouldn't have thought of or gotten to otherwise?
Man, the game is like filled with them. The first thing that comes to mind is a decision we made actually very soon after our early access launch. We basically prioritized the end game system called the Pact of Punishment. It's because we realized people were like playing and enjoying Hades way more than we had anticipated when we launched into early access. So we're like, down the line, we have these thoughts on what like the end game structure can be to like, once you clear the game, is there a reason to keep playing? Why would someone want to do that? And we discovered that people got to that point quite quickly and were like really eager to keep going, but we're also looking for those incentives. So we significantly prioritized this kind of end game system, which was something that I think normally we would have waited until much later in development, probably wouldn't have like fleshed it out nearly as much as we ended up doing. So that was an example of like, the feedback was like loud and clear, and we completely adjusted our priorities around that.
Okay, I have to come clean with you. At Inside Gaming, we have weekend features, and sometimes we rotate who gets to write them and who gets to kind of cut them together. And so I've been pitching one that is actually just called Hades is actually just teaching you how to be good at Dota. And so I wanted to, and people laughed at me, everyone at IG was like, what are you talking about? And also they're like, what is Dota? But
what?
Not really. I'm just throwing them under the bus a little bit.
Yeah.
But I know you're a Dota fan. I know you're a Dota 2 fan. How much of that game and hours playing that game has influenced your design decisions and what went into Hades? Because when I see things like the bow, for example, and the highlights of where you're tracing your aim and the way like the railgun works, it feels very familiar to me. In that way. So, and I knew you're a fan, so I wanted to ask you, is it true?
Yeah.
Are you just trying to trick me into playing Dota?
No, I mean, so I am indeed a Dota 2 fan, but who is an even bigger Dota 2 fan is Amir Rao, our studio director, who does a lot of the like nitty gritty design work on the game. Like he does the balancing of boons and tunes all the weapons, deals with the numbers and all that, while I'm more focused on the narrative design. Dota 2 runs real deep for him. like he got me into Dota 2, and he had been playing it for years and years before I got into it. And for sure, it's a big influence and a big reference point on our design team, simply because when you have a game with such like a rich history as Dota 2, it basically has like every character ability under the sun in it, like a version of it. So if you're making a game where you have characters that can like do stuff, that can like shoot stuff, or like
have a shield,
make stuff happen, have a shield, have stuff blow up under guys, like become temporarily invisible, like anything that you can think of, Dota 2 probably has a really good example of that ability. Like, I don't think that there are too many explicit references to it, but there are little things like Demeter, her legendary boon causes enemies to shatter and die when their health is low enough. So you don't even have to deplete their health, you just shatter them to bits. And that reminds me a lot of like Axe's in Dota 2. He could just execute guys. It's just right. I don't care how much health you have, just die on the
gone.
spot.
Yeah.
So we were thinking of stuff like that as an example. So it comes up, pretty regularly when we're like brainstorming abilities, and also to your point, like UI feedback and stuff like that. It's just Dota has to make those abilities like very clear as much as possible in terms of how to use them, and we prioritize that a lot, just making sure that abilities are really intuitive and players can just kind of pick up and go. Without a lot of tutorial.
I definitely feel it a lot in like the dashing around, obviously, and just some of those user abilities with again, like with the shield, where you can kind of see the outline of where your dash is going to go. That all, and like you said, like Dota is also like a spectator game, so those things have to be clear, not just for players, but for people watching too. So I think like, when I look at Hades and I think about the boon system, I feel like a big limitation for me and MOBA games like Dota and League of Legends is like, I'm always terrible at knowing like which items to buy. And I feel like you just completely eliminated this problem of like, here's a bunch of really cool stats and sets. You just pick one, you're going to get in and it's going to usually do pretty cool. Is there any similarities there between like buying items in a MOBA and like the boon system? Yeah, no, it is like, I think to your point, we're really happy that the game caters to a lot of different desires, right? Like some players are in it more for the narrative or whatever. Other players are like trying to beat their best time, or maybe somewhere in between. And the nice thing about something like the boon system is it does start you off like very gently, because it's just like, pick one of these three things. Hopefully they're all pretty kind of relatively straightforward, and maybe the choice will be pretty clear of like, oh yeah, I've been using this ability. This sounds good. I'll just try that. And the thing is, you could be successful at the game never leaving that mindset of just pick the thing that sounds cool. You'll be good to go. But there's this kind of next level mindset. It's not necessarily like a better mindset, it's just different, where people will be like, okay, I have to get this, then I have to get that. Oh, I didn't get this choice presented to me, now I have to go down this other path. And that is the part that's more like Dota 2, where you have your ideal anti-mage game where you farm up and you get all this stuff that's and then you're going to dominate. But then if things aren't going your way, you have to go to plan B, and you're not going to get all the best stuff, and so on. And I think roguelikes do have that similarity where you kind of roll with the punches. I actually think even more than that, this is the reason roguelikes, I think, resonate with players on like a primal, like almost a primal level. They because like that's life. Life is like a bunch of randomness that you try to exert control over. You wish that you could just script your life, in which case you would just script it perfectly, but you can't. So the best you could do is just try to navigate. And so roguelikes are about like navigating the unknown and, trying to like prevent the randomness from killing you. Anyway, that's a bit philosophical maybe, but to me, it really speaks to me. I think that's why Dota is compelling also. It's very similar. Each time you play Dota, it's like, you have your perfect dream game of Dota in mind, and it's probably not going to be the game that you're playing right now, but you just try to make the most of it. Just making the best of opportunities as they present themselves, while simultaneously trying to increase your chances of better opportunities presenting themselves. And then ultimately stave off terrible misery. Just, you're like, well, okay. Yeah. How could this not be more terrible? Yes. In some cases. That's a super fun answer. I think I have just one more question for you. Hades was announced at the Game Awards, and of course, people at home watching, as we kind of mentioned before, already know what happened at the annual Keeleys. But what would it mean to you and the team to take away an award at the Game Awards, or maybe even GOTY? I mean, congratulations, you're a nominee for Game of the Year.
It already means an awful lot. We're recording this where the day before yesterday, Hades was nominated for 8 different categories in the Game Awards. Nobody on our team saw that coming, not by volume, certainly. We'd seen, it means an awful lot. Like for me personally, I used to be a game critic way back when. I left working as a game critic back in 2007, so it's been a while now. But I used to review games myself. I used to spend hours and hours, deciding on Game of the Year nominees and ultimately winners. So that type of process means a lot to me. So seeing our game recognized, I wanted to make games since I was a little kid, since I was 8. Always wanted to make games that were worth a damn. And so when people say game is worth a damn, congratulations, I'm like, thank you so much. And our whole team, everybody just kind of pulled together on this thing, and we just feel incredibly fortunate that our work was recognized in this way, and that the game has resonated with people. We can control the quality of it, but we can't control the circumstances in which it's released, and how people are feeling when it comes out, and that stuff just, it's weird to think that the circumstances made the game resonate with people more than it might have otherwise. That's something I certainly think about. Not something we could have planned for, obviously, but yeah, I'm glad the game was there for people and that they're enjoying it.
Well, I am certainly super biased. I'm predicting a sweep of the Game Awards. I am super excited for Hades. I've been playing it a ton. It's a great game.
Thank you.
Congratulations to you and the team, already for just having a successful launch, getting through COVID and just making it happen, and working with the community, and, a new unprecedented thing for Supergiant, which is a series of challenges that you've kind of overcome and done it in a way, I think, where everybody came out on the other end pretty excited about Hades. So I'm looking forward to whatever's next for Hades. I'm looking forward to whatever's next from Supergiant. Just big congrats all around. Thank you so much for coming today and talking to me, and hopefully we can have you back on again sometime.
Yeah, right on. Thank you so much.